Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to my kitchen. Like many of you, I'm a mom who likes to make healthy, tasty meals for her family. So stick with me for the next 30 minutes and I'm going to show you my lighter, healthier version of a Southern classic.
Kick it.
So today we're going to make my lighter, healthier version of chicken and dumplings. I like to call them my springtime chicken and dumplings. My daughter calls them chicken and ducklings. As a kid, I loved them growing up, but as you get older, you kind of have to watch your weight a little bit more. So this is, like I said, a lighter, healthier version, a little fewer calories, a little less creamy, really delicious. And we're going to start with some basics. We need carrots, onions, celery, and some mushrooms. And let's go ahead and get those chopped up. I'm going to start by peeling the carrots. If you don't have a serrated peeler, I highly recommend you get one because they get like a good grip on whatever you're peeling and it makes it so much easier. It's not going to be as nice and smooth when you're done peeling as a regular peeler is, but it just feels better to peel it and it's a lot quicker, I think. Okay, we'll do one more here. I've actually got a couple already pre-peeled. And I almost forgot the handy dandy garbage bowl, which I saw on Rachel Ray. What a great idea. It saves you all those trips to the trash can. So I'm gonna take my peels and stick them all in there so I have a little more room on my cutting board. So I've got 4 carrots, and my daughter is really finicky about vegetables lately. She used to eat everything, but now she's getting a little picky. For some reason, she loves carrots if they're cooked in chicken broth, so I always put a couple extra. You could probably do 2 carrots and get away with it, but just because I want her to have those vegetables, I'm gonna do 4 today. Then I'm gonna take 3 stalks of celery. I'm gonna go ahead and trim the ends on those. So I got 3 stalks of celery, and you can use more or less. Celery adds a really good flavor to chicken, I think. I've got 1 onion and I've got about 4 or 5 cremini mushrooms. And I just want to show you really quickly how to clean them. I've cleaned most of them already, but when you're cleaning mushrooms, when you're using them for cooking, you don't want to wash them because mushrooms are like little sponges and they're going to suck up all of that water if you wash them. You want them to suck up all of the flavor of what you're cooking. So you're just going to take either a brush or a wet washcloth like this and just kind of wipe off any little pieces of dirt. And really that's about it. And then of course you're going to trim them and chop them up and you're good to go. All right, so let's get everything cut up. Make a little room on my cutting board here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the celery. I like to cut it a little bit at an angle just because it looks a little more fancy schmancy. And the easiest way to do that is to make a V shape with your celery and with your knife. And when the pieces are a little longer like this, it actually is going to give it a little more surface area to cook. Okay, let's throw away those ends. And now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my carrots. And my poor dog is allergic to everything, but she can eat carrots. So typically I save the ends of the carrots for her because poor thing, she doesn't have a lot of joy in life. She's even allergic to mangoes. So I'm not putting these in the garbage bowl because I'm saving them for Kira. And again, I'm just gonna put my carrot and my knife at an angle, kind of like a V shape, just to kind of make that longer, kind of more fancy schmancy slice. But you don't have to do that. You can cut them round, however you like it. Okay, now that I've got my celery and my carrots cut, I'm gonna go ahead and get my oil going because I want it to be nice and hot. Obviously, I don't want it to burn. I'm using an olive oil. I think I might have mentioned in the past, I love olive oil. It's very fragrant, it has a delicious flavor, and it's the good fat. So I'm gonna put about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of olive oil into my pot. And that's about 2 circles around the pot. Then I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on medium. And that's about a 6 out of 10. And I got a couple little celeries in here that I need to grab before they get burned. Next, I'm gonna chop up my onion while that olive oil heats up. And I actually saw on YouTube, apparently a lot of people need to know how to chop an onion. There are a bunch of different, I guess, lessons and different instructions of people telling you how to cut onions. Well, this is how I do it. You're just gonna take your onion, you're gonna cut it in half. Once you cut it in half, it's gonna be a lot easier to peel because sometimes trying to get that first layer off just by picking at it, it's a little difficult. But once you get it in half, you can kind of grab that layer there from the side and just pull it off. Okay. And you can use Vidalia onion, you can use yellow onion, any kind of onion you want, it's gonna work great for this. Okay, so my onion is peeled. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the tops, but I'm gonna leave this little butt on the end because that's gonna kind of keep the onion together while I'm chopping it. It's gonna make it a lot easier. Let me put that guy over there. And you're just gonna make maybe 4 or 5 slits down the length of the onion. Now, a lot of people will also cut it this way, but if you look at an onion, it's layered. And so you don't really need to make those extra chops because those little layers are gonna come apart as you're cooking anyways. And you're gonna see what I'm talking about. So just go ahead and make your slices through. But see, this is what I'm talking about. All these little layers, they're gonna come apart. It's gonna be small pieces anyways. Now, the reason I left this little butt on is so I have something to hold on to as I get closer to the end and so that the onion is gonna stay together for me. And you can always kind of just chop around it towards the end so you're really not wasting much at all. Let's give that dude a little chop. And let's see, our oil's getting nice and hot. Let me go ahead and cut this other half. Again, let's make those nice long slices through the top like that. Oops. Hold on to your little onion butt and into the garbage bowl. Okay, so my onions and carrots and celery are all nice and chopped up. I can feel my oils getting hot. If you don't know if it's hot enough, go ahead and put just 1 piece in there. Oh, we still have a little way to go. You don't want your oil to be too cold because what's gonna happen is all of your vegetables are gonna suck up that oil and just be kind of greasy. So you wanna make sure that your oil's hot. You stick 1 in there, it's fine if you got 1 little greasy celery out of your whole pot of chicken and dumplings. You can start to see little bubbles bubbling around that celery so that you know your oil is nice and ready to go. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and toss in the rest of my vegetables. Ooh. Got 1 under there. He's gonna be well done. Look at all those colors. Okay, while these vegetables are working on getting nice and tender, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back and I'll show you how the rest of it's done. Something for your mind, your body, and your soul. Something for your mind, your body, and your soul. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm making my springtime chicken and dumplings. It's a lighter, healthier version of that traditional southern meal. So I've got my onions, carrots, and celery cooking in some olive oil, and I'm just going to throw my mushrooms in. You want to make sure you trim the edges off. And that'll be very quick, take just a couple seconds. And these are some beautiful cremini mushrooms. You can use white mushrooms, you can use any kind you like. You don't even have to use mushrooms if you're not a mushroom fan. Instead of slices, I kind of like a chunk of a mushroom in my chicken and dumplings. So I'm cutting them into 6 and throwing them right into the pot. There we go, let's do it like this. Okay, this one's getting into 8s because he was a big guy. And like I said, you want to make sure when you're cleaning mushrooms, you're not going to stick them in water because you want them to absorb the flavor of whatever it is that you're cooking. So if you wash them in, if you stick them in water, they're going to suck up all that water and they're not going to be able to absorb any other flavor. All right, let's give those a quick stir. Now this meal is one of my absolute go-to meals. It's one of those things that I make when I totally forgot I have to make dinner and didn't take anything out to thaw. And the best thing about this is you can use it with frozen chicken. So I'm just gonna grab that out of my freezer real quick, along with some frozen peas, because I like to add a little more vegetables in there. Okay, so right now I'm just kind of making the broth for the chicken and dumplings. And this is seriously, this is frozen chicken. Because sometimes you just forget, or you have a night like I did last night where my daughter was up 4 times between 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning. So your brain is not on 100%. So I'm just gonna stick 2 good-sized chicken breasts in there. There we go. And like I said, they're solid frozen. I'm gonna stick the rest of this back in the freezer. I'm going to add about 5 cups of water. And kind of give that a little stir. See that pretty little mushrooms floating on the top? And I'm going to add some frozen peas. This is one of the things I think you always have to have in your freezer because you can use it for so many different things. And I'm putting in right about a cup. My little one loves to pick out the peas and carrots and the ducklings out of these. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on to high. Throw these back in the freezer. And grab my spices. Now just to make sure this gets enough chicken flavor, I'm gonna add some chicken bouillon. And I like the granules because they dissolve really quickly. You don't have that square that you're trying to jam down and get in there. And it's typically about 1 teaspoon per cup of water. So I've added 5 cups of water to this. I'm gonna add 5 teaspoons of my chicken granules. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I love the flavor of thyme with chicken. And I like ground thyme because it kind of dissolves and mixes in a lot more quicker. But if you have the leaves or if you have fresh, that works fine too. Just remember with dried herbs, they're gonna be a little stronger than your fresh herbs. So I'm gonna add, that's right about a teaspoon of ground thyme. And I don't need to add any salt because my bouillon already has a bit of salt in there. Let me go ahead and wash my hands real quick, get the thyme off. And let me give this a quick stir. And our broth is going, and that's it. And you can actually use this base as a base for chicken and rice or chicken soup. It's really versatile, and it's a really good thing to kind of have in your back pocket for those off days when, like I said, you forgot to take something out of the freezer. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover it so it cooks a little faster, and I'm gonna get started on the dumplings. Now this is a totally different version of the kind of dumplings you might be used to, more of a kind of thick biscuity dumplings. These are lighter, they're almost like a big kind of fat, cute little noodle. And I make them all on top of the stove. So I'm gonna start with 3 tablespoons of butter. It doesn't have to be exact, but you know, as close as you can get. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in my skillet. And you can make more, you can double this recipe if you like to have more dumplings in there. Let me go ahead and get that on, I'm gonna put it on about 7 to make sure that butter melts real quickly. You can see the steam coming out of the pot. I'm gonna check on that broth real quick. Kind of get that butter going. Ooh, so you can see that it's boiling. It's looking pretty good. But look at all those beautiful colors. All right, we're gonna let that continue to cook. And that frozen chicken is cooking and just adding all that extra flavor to the broth. You can toss this celery. Oh, good aim. All right. For these dumplings, you're gonna need 3 tablespoons of butter. You're gonna take a nice heaping 1/2 cup of flour, 2 eggs, and about a half cup of chicken broth. And that's all you need. So they're really yummy, they're really healthy, and really simple to make. Okay, so my butter's melted, and I'm gonna add my half cup of flour to my melted butter, and I wanna make sure I whisk it all in right away. I'm also gonna turn it down to about a medium, which is about a 5 out of 10. You want to make sure that your butter doesn't burn on this. If it gets a little brown, that's great. Actually, it's going to add a really nice nutty flavor to it. And you'll see it start to kind of come together, kind of mealy looking. And now I'm going to add some of this really flavorful chicken broth that's been cooking. Let's take this off and woo! Okay, so take a look at this real quick. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. You can smell the thyme in there and the onions. It just smells delicious. So I'm gonna take a nice heaping half cup of this broth. And I try not to get any vegetables in there, but if you get 1 or 2 in, they're just an added bonus to that particular dumpling. Works a little bit better if you go by the edge. My flour and butter are still cooking. I've turned them down, and I'm gonna add my broth to that. And you want to start whisking right away. And you see it starts to come together, and it's starting to actually look like a batter, sort of. But it's still kind of dry, but that's okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn my stove off. And I'm also going to turn this broth down to about a 3, so it's about a medium-low heat. And let's add our eggs. Give my hands a quick wash. One of the things that's great about these dumplings is that they're very forgiving. I was making them one time, and just as I was putting the egg into the batter, I saw my daughter nosedive off the couch. And by the time I got back from making sure she was okay, I had sort of scrambled eggs in the batter, but luckily I was able to whisk them up, and they turned out perfectly. And that's what you need if you're a mom and you have kids. You need something that's gonna work with you. So I'm gonna go ahead now, and I'm gonna pour my scrambled eggs or my beaten eggs into my batter. I'm just gonna mix it all up, and it's gonna take a couple minutes, and it might look a little funky. That's okay. All right, so what I've got is a nice, soft, really tender batter for my dumplings, or dough for my dumplings. And they're ready. Okay, so our dumpling batter is nice and soft and ready. And let's go ahead and get those dumplings made. Now, I typically use a piping bag, but if you don't have one, Ziploc is your friend. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take your food storage bag, and you're gonna cut a small hole in the corner, and that's gonna work perfectly. I'm gonna open her up, and let's go ahead and get our dough in there. And it's actually not too hot since I've turned it off. But if it is, use a spoon. You don't want to burn yourself. Okay, so I've got this nice, soft, beautiful dumpling dough. You don't really have to close that up, but you're going to work it all down to the bottom of the bag. So you're just going to make a little circle and come up. And you're going to have these cute little dumplings. And if your dough is a little too stiff, just add a little more broth. It's as easy as that. Or if you don't feel like making these little circles, you can just pipe it directly into your pot and just cut it off, snip it off as you go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these dumplings piped out. So stick with me, and I'll be right back to show you how I get it all wrapped up. Welcome back. While you were gone, I got my dumplings finished, and by the time those were done, my chicken was ready. So I went ahead and pulled it out and chopped it up and threw it back in the pot. Now let's get these dumplings into the pot. They're gonna take just a few minutes to cook, and I'll show you how we wrap it all up. Dumplings are all in the pot. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back up because I want it to keep boiling. And while that gets done, it's gonna give me enough time to get these dishes done and get my table set and ready for lunch or dinner, whenever you're eating this. Okay, so it's been about 7 minutes and my dumplings are done. They've sucked up all of that broth and thyme and all that flavor into there, so they are just gonna be delicious. I can already smell all of that. The carrots and the onions smell so good. My daughter is gonna love this. She would eat chicken and dumplings every day of her life if I gave her that option. Let's go ahead and see how they taste. Okay, and you can see all of those mushrooms in there, and the carrots, and the celery, and the peas. This is just gonna be an amazing meal. I'm gonna go ahead and cut into a dumpling here. These dumplings are so nice and light. I blow on it because it is kind of boiling hot. That is so delicious. Those dumplings are nice and creamy and light. And remember, this is a much healthier version because I'm not putting any cream in there. It's not that heavy biscuit batter. It's just a nice light broth with a beautiful dumpling. And my daughter's gonna love it, and I'm sure your family will too. And remember, you don't have to be a trained chef or cook to make delicious, healthy meals from your family. You just have to cook from your heart. And that is piping hot. I will never taste again if I put this in my mouth. Okay, so where am I? I just finished it. I just did a tagline. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. So I gotta go segment three, clap, clap. Clap, gotta pee, segment 3, sorry. Where's yours? Stop laughing. We'll be right back. I'm gonna do it again. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these dumplings pumped out and stay right to dumplings. What was I gonna say?